Since we're all here. Hi, Amanda. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Davis,
Here.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Here.
Mrs. Ingalls,
Here.
Mr. Malone,
Here.
Mr. Marshall,
Here.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Here.
Mr. Sebelia,
Here.
Mr. Soms, Mr. Washington.
Here.
8 here, 1 absent.
Okay, that we have no informational items that I'm aware of, or do we? No, we have that item that was added, never mind. Are there any residents or property owners that wish to speak at this time? Seeing none, any committee, commission, or board reports? Comments of town councilors. Andrea, do you want to read Bill's comment that he, the thank you comment? Okay.
You're on mute.
Did I just unmute? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Bill texted a message that he would like to thank the Ledyard Police, the Ledyard Fire Company, the Gales Ferry Fire Department, American Ambulance, Public Works, and all the first responders for the care they showed to him on January 18th when he broke his ankle. He said they are all selfless.
Thank you. Any other council comments? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of January 13th.
So move.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingalls,
Yes.
Mr. Malone,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. I will move on now to council subcommittee liaison reports. Admin.
The administration committee has not met since the last council meeting, and we do have an appointment on the agenda.
Let's see. Any questions for admin? Community relations? Mike,
Mike, you're muted.
Sorry about that. The Community Relations Committee met on the 20th of January. We had a discussion with the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation, and some of the discussion was on services to tribal members. And we had been working on a memo of understanding, but after much consideration, discussion, it was decided that we would work toward potentially a town-wide resolution on services. That will be something that we'll be discussing at our next community relations meeting. And that's it.
any questions for community relations? Finance.
I have the finance report that Councilor Soms prepared, so I'll read that. Give me just a second to, okay. The Town Council Finance Committee held both a special joint meeting with the Board of Education Finance Committee on Tuesday, January 19th at 5:30 p.m. and its regular meeting on Wednesday, January 20th at 5 p.m. via video conference. At the joint finance meeting, councilors and board members received a presentation on the results of the town's fiscal 2019-2020 audit from Nicoletta Mateague and Matt Bonin of Bloom Shapiro, recently acquired by CLA, which is Clifton Larson Allen. The auditors reported no compliance or internal control findings, which in lay terms means there were no issues with lack of compliance, accounting standards, or internal control processes. They also discussed the management letter, which provides recommendations to management for further improving controls and processes over reporting how town funds are used. As requested by the Finance Committee, the Town Finance Director has provided a written response to the recommendations, agreeing with the recommendations and identifying plans to implement them. The tax collection rate dropped only slightly from 98.66% to 98.11%, which is actually good news considering that taxpayers had the option to defer their July 1st taxes in light of the ongoing pandemic. And January 2021 taxes continue to flow at a near normal rate. So we appreciate and congratulate Ledyard taxpayers for their diligence. The Finance Director then provided an update on next year's budget as follows. Fiscal 2021-2022 state revenue figures are unknown at this time, and we are still assuming flat revenue other than the Pequot grant, which we expect will decrease back to $850,000. The $500,000 increase seen the last 2 fiscal years was only temporary. The mayor is in touch with our state legislators, Austin, France, and Conley, to request that the extra funding continue. The good news is that the state is now projecting a surplus for the current fiscal year, much better than the previously projected deficits for the next 2 years. On other points, the 2021-2022 budget must continue to accommodate the mill rate increase for the new police headquarters, with debt payments scheduled end in 2036. Although we still need to fund the school addition and renovation projects, we may not actually need to increase the mill rate to accommodate these debt payments, even though they will increase in the coming budget year. This is because the town recently completed its required revaluation, which resulted in an overall increase in the grand list of 7.57%. The valuation for our required pension contribution is up 3%, resulting in an increase of $32,950 in contribution costs. Healthcare costs are a moving target. We originally expected an increase of approximately $320,000 or 5.5% over the current year, but now put a 9% or $525,000 increase in the budget based on newer estimates from the town's healthcare advisors. We don't expect solid numbers until April, but 10% increases each year are common. The uncertainty is caused in part by people delaying elective surgery during the pandemic, but we have to assume that these expenses will roll in at some point in the future. We continue to face contractual increases for our bargained for employees. Recycling revenue, once a source of revenue for the town, will be zero, and disposing of recyclables is becoming more expensive. Maintenance and transportation costs increased last year and will continue this year due to the new school buildings. The superintendent and Board of Education report that the COVID pandemic has placed an additional strain on the budget due to the cost of supporting in-person learning, as well as having to stand up an infrastructure for at-home learning. And since some students are enrolled in full-time online learning, there is an additional cost to support that process 5 days per week instead of 3. The schools would have preferred to hire extra teachers to support online learning, but they did not, instead bridging the gap with paraprofessionals. Taking everything into account, the board and superintendent are presently anticipating a 1.45% increase, with nearly all of that increase coming from the bargained for contractual increases. At the regular finance meeting, the finance director reported that both revenue and expenses are on track with the current budget at mid-year point. The mayor also provided a report on the current and proposed budget, which we expect he will share during his report this evening. The committee is waiting for a response from Ledyard Housing Authority on our proposal to reduce the pilot rate. We also took action on 2 bridge replacement projects, which will move to the Land Use Committee before coming to the council. Everything else is on the agenda for tonight.
Thanks, Andra. Any questions for finance? Mary, you're muted.
Okay, the Housing Authority is going to discuss the proposal from the Finance Committee at their meeting on Monday, the 1st.
Thank you.
It's on their agenda.
Thanks. Any discussion? Any other discussion? Okay, land use?
Land use has not met. I have no report.
Okay. Any other liaison reports? Andra?
I have the Board of Ed report. Give me just a second. I'm juggling windows here. Okay, so Board of Ed. Board of Ed met on January 20th. So Board of Ed Finance Committee held a joint meeting with the Town Council Finance Committee on Tuesday, the 19th. We just discussed that. The Board of Education has approved their proposed 2021-2022 budget contingency plan. They have accepted their proposed 21-22 school calendar. Both of those items, the contingency plan and the calendar, they are linked directly from the BOE regular meeting agenda dated 1/20/2021, if anyone wants to see those. At the meeting, an update was provided on the district's COVID plan, which included a review of current opt-out population, which is around 527 students, their approach to the state required exams, and the impact of COVID on staff and potential classroom closures when there's an instance where a teacher needs to quarantine. And that is the BOE report.
Thank you. Roxanne? You're muted. You're muted. There you go.
Yep. Counselor Sam sent me his WPCA report. Do you want me to read it?
Sure.
Okay. The WPCA held its regular meeting at 7 p.m. on January the 26th, 2021. Groton Utilities has revised the plans and specifications for the Highland tank, which were delivered to the town planner. Past due receivables for December increased by approximately $2,000 to $18,706, and only 4 people have set up payment plans, so the WPCA will begin charging penalties to those customers who are late and have not set up a payment plan if they were impacted by the pandemic. The WPCA will request a meeting to renegotiate the water contract, which has now expired between Groton Utilities and the town of Ledyard for the Route 12 and Route 117. SQA provided data on water transferred from WPCA to their system due to a panel failure at the Ledyard Center well site behind the Ledyard Center School. WPCA will bill SQA for the water used and was able to provide water to the residents affected by the SQA system failure. WPCA has lost operators to other water systems for higher wages. The chair will request a meeting with the finance department to better understand how the current budget projections for fiscal year 21 and 22 were constructed. That's it.
Thanks, Roxanne. Any other liaison reports? John?
The building committee hasn't met for almost a month, but I can go over some highlights of the report that I sent in a couple weeks back, and perhaps maybe answer any questions if you'd like.
Yes.
All right, the track and field is complete. The punch list is all done, and the closeout documents have been submitted. Bad news, both schools still have multiple leaks in multiple areas. They're investigating them now. A lot of leaks are coming in through the heating and cooling units on the roof. Flat roofs have always been a problem because water just sits there and it'll find a way to get in. The roof door on the middle school still needs to be replaced. It was propped open by a contractor, and the wind caught it and sprung the hinges on it. The paint in the hallway in the middle school has still not been fixed yet. We still have $32,000 of their money They're bringing a third party in to reevaluate and come up with a solution to fix that. The warranty for the paint job expired in April of 2020, but the contractor was notified in writing during that warranty period, so we're still covered. O&G has made an application, a final application for payment of about $250,000, and they're going to continue to work with the contractors for unfinished and unacceptable work. And so we asked them, so what, at this point, there's not a lot of money left. At this point, what's your leverage with these contractors? And Dan said, well, if they ever want to work with us again, they're gonna do the right thing. And I've been in the business a long time, and at this point in the game, no one really cares about that, about working with them again. At this point, they've already made their money, so we can only hope that they do the right thing and fix all these little problems and unfinished and unsatisfactory work. So we'll just have to hope and pray on that. I'm sure we'll be okay in the long run. In Gallup Hill, there was still noise in the heating and cooling system. And when they got into it, they found out that the dampers were never installed in the system. There was diffusers, but not dampers. There was an issue with that because the box was checked that the dampers were inspected, but there were no dampers to inspect. So he really didn't have an answer on that, but they're going to be looking at that and fixing that and installing them correctly. And it was brought up, there's been some additional cost associated with these problems with the heating and cooling system. And we may be able to recover some of that money because we spent too much trying to fix that. There's been no updates on the previous problems like the sprinkler in the vestibule where there's no heat for the sprinkler and the missing blocking for the TV in the middle school. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Any questions for John? Okay, hearing none. Any other liaison reports? Looks like it's time for the mayor.
No. Hi, Linda, I have a question for John.
Yes.
Hey, John, didn't we used to get an annual presentation from the PMBC chair on projects and status and so on and so forth?
We did.
And I know we haven't had one because I remember it used to be towards the end of the calendar year, sometime usually between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So, and I'm not, I just think, the police project had some hiccups and now the two schools, I would just like to get a better picture of what kind of oversight are we providing, the GC and the clerk of the works and, like the whole, for instance, the thing you mentioned about propping a door open and the door get blown out of the hinge springs, that's just a bonehead mistake. I'm sorry to say it like that. But, I deal a lot with contractors in my job. And when they make a mistake like that, they restore us to 100% on their, on their account. So I would just like to find out maybe at some point if we can get a presentation on accountability and oversight that the PMBC is providing for these different projects.
The oversight belongs to Dan Hetzler from O&G. He took over from Matt when Matt left, and switching midstream with that is never a good thing to do because one guy blames the other one for any problems that come up.
Yeah. I got that part.
And yourself, probably even Mike Washington deals with contractors, perhaps Kevin as well. So none of this really is a big surprise to any of us. It's the nature of the beast. It's an unacceptable part of the business. But the oversight is solely O&G's responsibility. And to say that, if they ever want to work with us again, they're going to fix these things. Like I said, no one cares about that. And said there's not at this point, all the money's been made, and there's not a lot of money left in these for these contractors. So we just have to hope to do the right thing. And to send someone back to fix that door, that's not high on anyone's list to do. Now, the paint in the hallway, that's $30,000. That's a big number. That will probably get resolved, but these little things, it could be some time. We might have to hold the money and find an additional contractor to take care of some of these things. Or ONG can use their own carpenters to do it.
And maybe so. I guess my point using that example is, like you said, it's not important to them, but it's important to us. I'm sure it's important to the people in that school.
Oh, absolutely. I don't disagree with that. But the sole responsibility falls on Dan Hessler and ONG. He's the superintendent. Everything that happens on the job is his responsibility.
Mike, you had a comment.
Just a quick question. Is there any, I work on construction jobs for DOT, and at the end of a job, everything has liquidated damages for a set date to be done. And if you fail to meet the date, then we go after damages. And then if you have latent defects such as this, we actually will go after the contractor for the prime, which would be ONG, to make good. And along the way, just send them something in the effect of, hey, we're going to be incurring costs because of your failure to perform, then we would look to recover those costs. Is that discussion taking place with ONG?
We are right on the edge of doing that, Mike.
Okay.
We're at that point now. There's a lot of frustration on Wayne Donaldson's part and the building committee's part that these issues are not getting resolved in a timely fashion. And now they're starting to cost money. But I told them flat out, you're not getting another dime out of the town. You got to fix these problems with the money that's left, or it's on you.
Yep.
I will go ahead and invite Steve Juskowitz to a future meeting because I can't remember. I thought he came in the summer, but with COVID time, it's kind of doesn't make any much sense anymore. So I will invite him to a meeting prior to our budget when things get really crazy busy. So do you want to, Roxanne, we'll go ahead and send him a message. Thank you. Any other questions for John? Okay, now it's time for the mayor's report.
All right, thank you. Great discussion. Couple quick things. I attended the Ledyard Prevention Coalition meeting on racism and racial justice on January 19th. Very interesting meeting. They had a number of speakers that took part, and Ledyard Prevention Coalition is a subset of the Ledyard Health District. So good discussion, good information that came from that. Incidentally, tied to that, the Ledyard Prevention Coalition also secured their second half grant. So their grant is broken up into multiple years. They secured the second half, so now they're funded through the calendar year 2025. So they do a lot of work in our schools. They did a big program, kind of an anti-vaping program in the schools. They've done one on marijuana. They've done all sorts of different things on alcohol, you name it. So they do a lot of good work in our schools, and it sounds like they'll be continuing through 2025. Positive note on our defined benefit pension plan, which I believe closed in the year 2013. We are down to 6 years to be fully funded on that liability. So we're in really, really good shape on that. I think we're in the top 10 towns in the state in terms of being fully funded and where we are presently. So great job there. Our 403B plan is still growing. That, of course, is our, it's like the nonprofits version of a 401k for the general public world. But of course, when we add people and people continue to invest in that, our liability increases in that, but at a much different rate than the DB plans. That's good news. I wish I knew the name, and my assistant was out today, but the town actually received a $5,000 gift to help do repairs to the Ledyard Up-Down sawmill. So they put out a call because they need to do some work over there. They have a inlet pipe that needs to be replaced and a little bit of other work, but for somebody to step up, and it wasn't a local operation, but for somebody to step up like that and provide us $5,000 was tremendous. So I will get that, and we will be sending a huge thank you to them. On the food pantry, we're still banging away on the lease terms. We've got terms that are agreed to at this point. We just don't have the document in hand. Where we are right now, 2 classrooms, 1,630 square feet, 9.5 foot ceilings in there, clear span, so it'll be easy for us to get racking in there and storage purposes. We're looking at $667 a month, which is a gross rent that includes all the utilities, and that number is fixed for 5 years. We have 2 options to renew, so we have as many as 15 years there if we choose. The rent would increase in the first option year to $733 a month, and in the second option to $807 a month. So we're looking at about a $140 increase over 10 years. So very favorable for the town. It's sub $5 a square foot for the space, which is fantastic. So we're hoping that that'll get wrapped up very, very shortly. On the COVID front right now, we're looking at 720 cases in the town of Ledyard. Since the beginning, we've had 10 deaths. They're still slowly moving along with the 1A group. They've now added the 1Bs, as you know, so the 75 plus population is getting vaccinated. Huge challenge, of course, is the 211 system for the state. They've had, people have called the office saying that they waited on hold for as much as 2.5 hours on 211 because they're not computer savvy people. So they're trying to register for the vaccine through the phone system that was very understaffed. So they have added, I believe, 75 people to the 211 system. Hopefully that will help. If there are other seniors, and I might ask Scott, who I see is on the call now, but if there are other seniors that we can somehow assist them through the senior center to get them registered on the VAMS website or on the CVS website, because they're now doing vaccinations, not at the Gales Ferry CVS right now, but at the Waterford CVS over on Post Road. And they're also doing the clinics, the vaccination clinics through Ledgelight at the Groton Municipal Complex down on Meridian Street. So we need to try to continue to get seniors through that process so that they can continue into the 1Cs and the 1Ds that are still waiting in the wings. And the state has kind of tightened up on people that are trying to get vaccinated that probably aren't in that cohort yet. So I'm going to post a notice tomorrow on social media to let people know that the last Ledgelight vaccination clinic that was conducted, they are quizzing the people that arrive, and 40% of the people did not qualify in that cohort, and they were turned away on the spot. So you don't want to waste your time and energy to register for a vaccine that you don't qualify for yet, only to find out that you get there and they send you away. So that's something we got to work on. The good news is the state of Connecticut is the 5th in the United States in terms of the number of residents vaccinated on a per capita basis. That's good. They did tell us today through an emergency services call, we need to be prepared to wear masks through the fall of 2021. And the reason I guess that is that what they don't yet know is if you are vaccinated, can you still get the virus, and could you then convey it to somebody else? So you might be vaccinated and you might feel perfectly fine, but you might also be able to be a carrier and a transmitter. So they don't really know the status of that yet. So I think they're kind of hedging on that one. And then the state budget is actually due next week. The first week of February, the state budget is due. So the governor has indicated that he is going to make municipalities and municipal aid whole. We certainly hope so. We are still working on the budget in town. The Board of Ed is going to deliver their budget on February 22nd. I'm going to deliver the budget on March 1st. In the meantime, what I would tell you is that right now we're looking at about a 0.4 of a mil decrease in the tax rate. So I'm hoping for a little bit more. We're going to continue working on it. We worked more today on the capital plan and the revenue side of things. We're spending a couple more hours tomorrow morning on the expenditure side, see if we can squeeze those down a little bit more. But I would say the budget is looking good right now. So I think that's all I have right now. Yeah, I believe that's it. It's kind of a short report tonight.
Thank you, Mayor.
Of course.
Anybody have any questions for the mayor? No one? Okay. We have no old business. Anyone like to amend the agenda under new business? Hearing none, we'll start with admin.
Okay, I make a motion to appoint Melissa Dyson, Democrat, 31 Hurlbut Road, as an alternate member to the Historic District Commission to complete a 5-year term ending December the 6th, 2024, filling a vacancy left by Ms. Kelly.
Second.
Ms. Dyson has volunteered at the Nathan Lester House and has an interest in historic homes and is interested in serving on the Historic District Commission.
Thank you, Mary. Did Miss Kelly move into a regular position?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Any other questions? Hearing none, Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Malone,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall, Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Finance, next item.
Okay. I make a motion to grant a bid waiver to Charles Pastriak Jr., Inc. for paving and incidental services for the 2021 calendar year.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion.
Okay. Yeah, so this is, I'm going to read the background information that was provided by Steve Maslin. So we actually approved this bid waiver last year as well for paving and incidentals under the terms of the state of Connecticut vendor in place paving contract. The state is not rebidding for the paving services for this year, but is instead extending the terms of those contracts for this period. But the reason we want to continue with this vendor anyway is the history of excellent work. So the background of the 2020 request still applies as a basis for this present request, only that the credentials of Charles Pastriak Jr. Inc. were further validated by the quality of their workmanship in 2020. Firsthand impression, counselors can visit Friar Tuck neighborhood, Ash Drive, Amber Circle, Blacksmith Drive, etc. So yeah, we're requesting the bid waiver for the upcoming season.
Very good. Any questions? Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Malone,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. The next item, there was not time to put on the Finance Committee's agenda, but due to the time constraint involved, I decided to just send it straight to the council. But Mrs. Ingles, would you go ahead and make the motion?
Sure. Just a second. Sorry, I lost my place here. I make a motion to authorize the mayor to submit a Department of Aging and Disability Services State Unit on Aging, Connecticut Senior Center Project, CARES Act grant application in the amount of up to $2,500 for the Ledyard Senior Center to purchase ID card printer and ID card scanner reader. In addition, appropriate up to $2,500 from account number 210-90305-58915 CNR undesignated. And upon receipt of grant funding, reimburse account number 210-90305-58915 CNR undesignated.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. I see Scott is here. Scott, do you want to talk to this motion from Parks and Rec?
Yeah, sure. So I appreciate you guys, looking at this last minute. We found out about it end of last week. It's a great opportunity for the senior center to get some easy funding. We're planning on getting an ID card printer and then a scanner, which will allow us when we start to reopen, contactless check-in and check-out, and it'll also do contact tracing for us. We'll integrate right with our MyRec software that we already have through Parks and Rec. And then we're also looking to possibly get another webcam for the big room that has a microphone that hopefully can actually pick up the sound for when people are doing hybrid meetings in there. It'll work a little better than the current one we have.
Thank you, Scott. Anybody have any questions? Hearing none, Roxanne, would you call the roll?
Mr. Malone,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Kevin, would you like to make the next motion since it involves land use?
Sure. I make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign a lease for 2 classrooms in the former Ledyard Center School, 740 Colonel Ledyard Highway, from Landlord Ledyard Center LLC of Middlefield, Connecticut. The lease space will be for the relocation of the Ledyard Food Pantry.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. The mayor discussed the lease terms under his report. I have to say, I think those are pretty fabulous lease terms for anybody that knows. I saw Tony's eyes light up when he heard the lease terms. Excellent job negotiating, Mayor. Any other questions about those terms as we are authorizing him to sign? Hearing none, Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Malone.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. And one thing we didn't mention, Mayor, is that we're looking at an April 1st timeline. Is that about right?
That is correct, exactly. We're looking for occupancy April 1. We figured we should probably look to wait so that we're not moving in the dead of winter, if there is a dead of winter. So that's what we're thinking.
Very good. Thank you.
It's going to
Okay.
be pretty dead this next weekend.
Yeah, for sure. And with that, unless there is any other information or discussion, Kevin,
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
motion's made and seconded. This meeting is adjourned without exception. Well, that was one of our quicker meetings.
Indeed.
Can we see your puppy, John?
There's the source of the background noise right there.
Yeah.
This is
That
Henry.
dog is precious. She was in town, or he was in town hall the other day, and the markings on that little dog are amazing. What a great dog.
Yeah, he's a great companion too. He jumped up right here about 10 minutes ago.
Oh, there he is.
He just hangs out with me all the time.
Sweet dog.
Nobody wants to leave, Roxanne.
We're all looking at John's puppy. John, you can go away. Just leave the dog.
Okay. Well, it's the cat that runs my laptop once in a while. If you see something strange come across, it's because the cat walks on the keys while I'm typing.
Okay, oh, shoot. Okay, guys.
Have a good night,
Have a good night,
everybody.
everyone.
Everybody
Night.
later.
Bye, everyone.
Night.
Good night.